Well, welcome to the Headless DAM with Cloudinary Bootcamp course, lesson number 2, the relationship between headless dams and headless CMSs, presented by Maribel Mullins, Technology Partner Manager at Cloudinary. If you do want to learn more about her, I have a great interview with her in the introduction section of this course on headlesscreator.com. With that said, let's get Maribel in. Maribel, welcome. I'm glad to have you here. I'm going to go away because people came for you and your presentation. So have fun.
All right, thank you. Hello, let's get started. So in the last lesson, my colleague Sam, he talked about dams or digital asset management systems and their benefits. And now let's talk about headless dams. So what is a headless dam? It's a digital asset manager that communicates and shares content with applications via APIs. It decouples the management of the assets from the consumption of them. So management being a dam librarian, controlling the configuration, the taxonomy, governance, and housekeeping, and consumption being the interaction with assets such as tagging, repurposing, resizing, cropping, or publishing in different systems. And the number one goal of headless dams is to be a single source of truth for all teams and systems. And so here are some companies that offer headless dams. And so you can take any type of file, such as images, videos, 3Ds, PDFs, spreadsheets, docs, etc., and you can store them in your headless dam. And via APIs, plugins, widgets, SDKs, you can access them through other platforms, such as PIMs, product information management systems, commerce platforms, CMSs, CDNs, which allow you to output to websites or other resellers or even other partners.
Real quick on that, because one of the things I know we covered in lesson 1, but it's worth noting here, you can also integrate a headless dam into production apps like Photoshop or any InDesign, any of those as well, correct?
Absolutely. Yep. That's definitely something that some dams offer. Yep.
Yep, cool.
Exactly. And so as far as benefits, so here are some of the benefits of a headless dam. Because you're decoupling the management and the consumption of assets, you can build your own management UI or even your own front end with assets. And so most dams support multiple programming languages, so developers have the freedom to choose whatever front end or backend systems that they want. If everyone is working with approved assets, you'll be able to find the assets quickly through advanced search and pull them into any system, allowing the cross-platform sharing. Also, with APIs, you can build your own workflows. So if an asset gets uploaded, you can get notified or send them directly for approval or editing to streamline your workflows. Something cool is, say that you post your company logo in multiple places and with your DAM's URL, and perhaps it's time to refresh the logo. And all you need to do is replace the old logo with the new one in the DAM using the same file name. And wherever the old logo URLs are being used, it will automatically update with the new logo. And so a lot of designers, they love this feature because they're able to use filler images, which eventually get updated with approved edited images. And like some regular dams, headless dams usually come with user management and auditing. And most, if not all, headless dams will allow you to manipulate assets via APIs, such as images and videos by changing format, resizing, cropping, etc., while even without having to open Photoshop. And lastly, headless dams can adapt and scale to any business needs. So what is a headless CMS? So it's a content management system that helps users create and manage content on a website. So headless CMSs don't come with a front end. And the headless term comes from separating the front end from the back end via APIs. So similarly, as we discussed with the headless dams. And CMSs store your content in a systematic way. And so the way I like to imagine it is that you're filling out an online form and you provide the content which gets stored in a CMS. And later, designers and developers can create multiple sites or whatever they want and designs with that content. And they don't need to know what the content is. They just need to be able to access it from the database. So this allows companies to prevent bottlenecks and be able to update sites quickly. So I know what you're thinking, but wait, aren't media assets considered content? Yes. Boiled down, CMSs and DAMs are basically databases storing content. And so DAMs can store assets along with metadata associated with the assets, like metadata being tags, descriptions, SKU number, or anything you want to search on to find the assets later. And CMSs store web content information like text and photos, audios, videos. So yes, most CMSs have their own media manager, but you should decouple CMSs from storing your media assets because there are issues with headless CMSs trying to act like a DAM. So for example, if your media is attached to content and you need other systems to access that media, say it's a marketing promotion or whatever, like how to get the latest and greatest to another system. And sometimes you have to publish the image or generate a permanent URL within the CMS just to make the URL work outside the CMS. And so how do you do that in bulk? You can't. So there are no APIs for assets sitting inside of the media manager. The only support using assets is on the front end of the web for the website team, and it's not really meant for other systems. And so also the assets dumped into media managers are usually for when you're populating content, and there's usually not a DAM librarian setting structure, system permissions, foldering rules, etc. It's usually a free-for-all, and some headless CMSs offer limited foldering or no foldering at all. And security of viewing, editing, or updating assets is not really a concept in headless CMSs. If an asset needs to be changed, such as resized or cropped before adding on a web page, this is not something most headless CMSs can do on the fly. It's something that has to be handled on the front end. And lastly, there's not a lot of robust search capabilities to find your assets, such as searching assets with faces or predominant color or through structured metadata. And so the fact is CMS media managers are limiting. I pulled a few screenshots from various headless CMSs, and you could see there are a lot of constraints. For example, they only allow certain file types. So what if you wanted to do like cutting edge technologies such as like 3D or 360 spins, or how about videos? Currently, the smallest web format for Chrome is AVIF. How come they don't support it? And most headless CMSs have a max size or resolution. Some have delivery API optimizations, so why don't they allow you to upload bigger files? As part of the delivery URL, some CMSs allow you to do basic changes or transformations to your assets. However, some headless DAMs let you do Photoshop-like effects, such as overlaying, watermarks, logos, text. There's also no version control for assets. You replace an image and you typically don't get access to revert to the previous revisions. And permissions for assets are not really available. With headless DAMs, you can set permissions on who can view, who can add, or who can edit assets. Metadata tagging, some CMSs don't do it at all. And some allow you only one field for tags, or others let you create multiple unstructured tags. However, for DAMs, tagging assets with structured or contextual metadata is essential for searching in both the management and consumption of the assets. And this can even be done via AI object recognition. Is that what you're going to say?
Yeah, no, and I was gonna like add, I think at the end of the day, right, you have a PIM to manage your products. You have a headless CMS to manage your content. If you're serious about images, not just images, but media in general, video, 3D formats, all sorts of stuff, you need a specialized tool that can help you scale in an enterprise, right? And that's where it really helps out quite a bit.
Exactly. Yep. Good point.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Okay, cool.
Let's see. As far as what's the difference, I found this slide from woodwing.com. I liked it because it shows a side-by-side comparison of headless DAM and headless CMS. And just to go through a few that I haven't already covered. So like a headless DAM understands the assets uploaded versus a headless CMS describes the assets uploaded. A headless DAM creates different versions of assets for different usage needs. And a headless CMS may optimize input images or display on web and mobile only. So how do they relate? So I'm telling you, you should decouple the CMS from handling the media. And don't just take my word for it. Here's an organization called the MACH Alliance, which stands for Microservices, API First, Cloud Native SaaS, and Headless. And these are the principles that allow you to build composable architecture. And this is an example of a commerce environment and how it should be architected to ensure an agile experience. So notice that media sits outside of the CMS, and they do this so that all systems can interact with the media platform. And so you're probably wondering, how do you integrate a headless DAM with a headless CMS? So I took this slide from Cloudinary, and it shows that a true integration with a headless CMS allows users to upload or pick media from the DAM and then store it into the CMS of choice. And they're not storing the actual content or taking a copy of it. The CMSs are storing the URL from the DAM. And in doing so, it allows the front-end developers to pull out the URL stored. And in addition, the DAM can support features that can override the content management systems on the front end, such as latest image formats, 3D, 360s, videos, shoppable videos. The benefits of integrating a headless DAM are that with most assets, they have to go through an approval process, and imagine only seeing assets that have been approved and being able to pull those into your CMS. With a headless DAM, you can search for any asset that you have access to and find it easily in any system. And because everyone is using the same assets, you can improve your brand consistency across multiple platforms, and updating your assets once, and you have all your assets updated everywhere. And lastly, reuse the media content across your site without having to create multiple copies of the assets. And so you're wondering who should utilize a headless DAM. If you've got a headless CMS, you probably should go for a headless DAM. If not, then here are some things to consider. Number one, do you have great engineering resources? Going headless is not for the faint of heart. You need to have a great development team to connect all the Lego pieces and customize the front end to utilize the headless DAM APIs. If you have a complex technology stack with multiple content systems, you need a headless DAM to centralize your content and work with all the systems. If you have multiple teams creating and publishing content from different various touch points like partners or different brands, etc., you need it. And if you have custom workflow requirements and you need to work with webhooks or need to create a custom system that has flexibility, then a headless DAM is for you. And so now I'd like to show you a demo of how to integrate Cloudinary with the headless CMS, and then how to pull the assets on the front end.
Before we jump into that real quick, what I was going to suggest, because I've been on some implementations of headless DAMs with headless CMS, and one thing I do recommend is if you plan on doing that, make sure you take into account the migration of your assets from your current headless CMS into a headless DAM, because that is a pretty big deal. And if you can do it prior to implementing a headless CMS, bring in the DAM before that, so that way, because you have to take that into consideration, right? When you're integrating, is the migrating of assets that you have there, because your URLs will change and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. You're definitely going to break the URLs. And on top of that, you need to, before you set up a DAM, you need to have a DAM librarian really set up the structure of it. So what tags are going to be associated with the assets? How do you want to search for them? Which foldering hierarchy? And how do you dish out the permissions? These are all things that need to be considered when setting up a DAM. And then, as you mentioned, the migration of the assets, like what folder do they go in, and what content do you attach to them? So it's kind of an overhaul, but for the long run, it's going to be very useful.
Definitely. But I just want to make sure people keep in mind the migration of assets from current headless CMSs. That's a big thing. So
yep, absolutely.
Very cool. But now we're there for your demo.
All right. So you can see my screen. I have a JS Fiddle going on. So I just want to show you how easy it is to really integrate with a DAM and a CMS. And so I just want to show you, like, this is a typical way, or the easiest way probably. So I do work for Cloudinary. So this is Cloudinary, what I'm showing you. And with just some simple code, you can get started. And so if you have a custom CMS, or moving to Headless CMS, most of the Headless CMS have this integration already. And this is kind of how they did it. So here you can see I've included a script for Cloudinary, and this is what opens our Cloudinary widget and so forth. I'm actually putting some parameters in here, a configuration of, I'm putting my cloud name, my API key, and also I'm putting some default transformations, which fetch format means to be able to figure out what the browser is, and for the end user, and then serve up the smallest possible file for that browser. And then we have quality, like how much can I remove pixels without you visually noticing a difference? So I have that in there. Here I'm naming this button. And then I just have some integration parameters there. But yeah, so let's see it in action. So when I hit let me just do a show so you can get the full effect of what this looks like. So here's that button. And when I click that button, it opens a Cloudinary widget. And you can put this on any web page, and Headless CMS, as I mentioned, do this, like the most common ones. And here I have access to my folders. You can see when I'm sharing a folder. You can see the assets, and then also any tags associated I have with it, structured metadata, or even contextual metadata. I can even come in here and I can edit the asset and say, you know what, for this particular content, I probably want size, width 500, and then maybe some type of effect. Maybe make it black and white. I can see what it looks like, and then click insert. So when I hit insert, what you get is a JSON response. So what CMSs are doing is they can store all of this JSON in a JSON field. So when the front end goes to pull the assets, they're just picking off the actual fields that they want. So here you can see we have a secure URL. This is the original URL. We're giving you back information. We're giving you back all the tags. And then if there's any changes that you did, like some type of transformation. So here you can see we have that black and white, the width 500, as well as the format auto and quality auto. And so, yeah, so this is how they're integrating this Cloudinary into the headless CMSs. And this isn't the only way. We have APIs, but just this is a widget that most marketing and creative folks can relate to and use it.
And real quick, I know when I used to work on in previous job using Contentful, there was an app also, right, in the App Store.
Yep.
And I think most headless dams will offer kind of like an app that you can integrate. Is there? Do you know if you guys also have integration with like Photoshop, like where it just comes into Photoshop directly?
Yep, exactly. Yep. So even that Photoshop, so Cloudinary does have a Photoshop integration, and even with that, it's using this widget. So you're getting a little piece of this widget as well. And you mentioned Contentful. Contentful is actually doing this integration as well. And they've put their own UI in front of the types of integration, default transformations you can use. And yeah. And actually, their Contentful has an open source of the Cloudinary integration that you could see the code exactly how they're doing it.
And for the transformation that you're showing there, we're going to have an entire lesson on that. But the nice thing about transformations like that is you can do it via the code as well. So that way you don't have to create multiple versions. And we're going to go into that quite a bit later in later lessons. But that's a very powerful feature to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, so there's that. And so what I showed you is, how do we create this JSON? But from the front end, what does that look like? What are you pulling? So I just want to show you, I did build this site with Contentful. So here's an example where I'm pulling, images and videos from Cloudinary and putting them onto my website. Let's dig into the code as far as like this thumbnail. How do I pull this from Cloudinary? So if I look at, I'm looking at this article preview component. And once I drill into this, what you'll see is pulling the article, and then I'm pulling, the Cloudinary image associated to that article. And I'm checking the resource type. Is it an image? Is it a video? We also have raw, which is like anything other than an image and video. So if it is a video, then I'm saying, all right, put the HTML tags and then put these attributes. And then here you'll see I'm pulling, if there's a derived image, so somebody applied a transformation to the video, pull that, or just pull the original secure URL. And then if it's not a video, then put the image HTML tags and then output either the derived or the secure or original secure URL. And so, I mean, it's that easy to just pull in Cloudinary assets onto your website. And of course, we're going to have to like input the component in different other pages where this article is being used, but you get the gist of how easy it is to pull. And then if here's Contentful. This is, an example of Contentful. I also did it with content.ai. So content.ai, here's an example of where I'm also pulling, there's an article, there's an element, and I'm including the element here in the front, and then also doing something similar. Here I'm not pulling for videos, or I mean, you could change the code to pull for videos or 3D or whatever it may be. And yeah, so the cool part is like, even though I'm not sure if content.ai supports 3D, but if they don't, you don't need to worry about that because the DAM does, and then you're able to create whatever assets you want on your content management system. So yeah, so that's how you can integrate and pull on the front end. And so what we learned today was about headless DAMs. We learned about how they relate to headless CMSs, and then also you just saw the integration from integrating from a DAM and pulling from the front end.
That was awesome. Yeah, and speaking of 3D, we're going to have a full lesson on 3D, which I'm very excited because I'm into VR and stuff like that. And so I know we're going to have a full lesson into the 3D models and how that's supported in a digital asset management system. Maribel, thank you so much. I really appreciate you doing this.
All right. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
And I hope you enjoyed it as well. And remember to continue watching all the other lessons so you can continue your journey learning all about digital asset management systems. Also, remember that there's going to be a study guide for this lesson, so that way you can take a knowledge exam later on and get a knowledge certificate, either on foundations or advanced. So keep watching and keep studying. It's going to be worth it for you to do that. And as always, there it is, Marcelo@headlesscreator.com. Email me with any questions you have. So until the next lesson, have a great one.